Good morning, fellow zombies. Are we alive yet? Are we awake yet? Oh, don't ask me that question. I'm not even here. Are you kidding me? It's 6:56 in the morning Pacific Standard Time. It's the 23rd of June, 2023. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing some of the political crap and mostly Ocean Gate and CNN's constant barragement of the damn news. I mean, they are just drowning me out. I have to switch over to MSNBC to see what the hell's going on half the time. And I was listening to a friend's video about how things are getting a lot different these days. How the weather guy is leaving and how the weather is so screwed up he can't even depend upon the weather station. I had to tell him, look, check it on yourself. Do the maps, do the study. I'm a weather geek at times. I can't tell you the terminology, but I'm looking at the weather patterns left and right. I can tell you that a long time ago I flunked meteorology, okay? With the weather terms and how to read maps, but I was still reading maps because I kept looking at the weather and I kept studying this damn stuff. This is perfect about the damn thing. What can I say? But even even with the but there, I was still dealing with what I was still dealing with and studying what was going on these days. Someone says, "Well, it's sunny out here," and then I looked at the satellite pictures and I'm like, "Flipping a coin again, are you?" I'll look at the satellite bases and I'm seeing how the clouds are moving left and right. Sometimes they'll do a burn off and sometimes they won't, especially out in the Southland. And this friend of mine, person I follow on YouTube, out in East Coast, he was complaining about it was the first time he actually seen orange skies, and I had to remind him, well, seeing orange sky for the first time is scary enough anyway. Try living under that damn shit. So it's no wonder I had an attitude towards it. I got to apologize to the guy because there's other things I've lived through that he hadn't. But then again, I hadn't gone through his shoes in his life experiences either. So I have to be reminded of things, not to be that much judgmental about it. Daryl, I'm sorry. Have I seemed like an egotistical elitist at this point? I've seen and gone through too much, then it's probably jaundiced me a bit. Maybe a little bit insensitive to other people's experiences. It's like me trying to make a big deal about earthquakes that we have out here. And if you happen to have any ground shifting in your area, maybe they're doing some fracking in your area, trying to break up the ground, forcing liquid down just to get the either natural gas or oil out of your area if you've got any out in that area. And then you feel the shaking of the ground because the shifting of the earth, the shifting of the rocks and the water tables. That does create an earthquake. They were doing a lot about that in the Midwest. Oil fields they find out there, and some of them tried to do fracking. I was hearing the reports about it for over 30 years on this one, a little longer than that. And some of them were complaining about having earthquakes. Well, naturally, there's no fault lines in the area, but they're making their own fault lines in the area. Shallow, subsurface, but it's still in there. Not heavy duty cracks, but they're still out there. And it's scary. It's scary seeing this. I have lived through so much. I have lived through earthquakes. I hate earthquakes. I studied the earthquakes. I kept trying to study area. I kept trying to study geology in one way or another. Hearing about what the geologists in the area would talk about the earthquakes and the substrata and the movement of the earth and anything else regarding it. There had been a lot of smoke in the air at times. and the smoke was coming from fires or from pollution. I lived through those days, and it was not fun. Weather changes, weather pattern changes. Some days got a lot hotter, and other days got a lot wetter. And I had to keep in my head of some of the times when we actually had changes in the climate. Oh yeah, climate change. Isn't that wonderful? Either we're going to get hotter and roasting like crazy, or else we're not. So that's going to be nasty to deal with. It's cool, it's clear, it's crisp. It's about 7:02 in the morning. I don't have to worry about pulling out a mask to breathe. Most days are like that. I don't have to pull out the mask to breathe. I'm okay with that. I am. I am not complaining about it. I'm just dealing and coping right now for it. What else is going to be happening? I don't know. Are we going to be having more fires? I'm going to be expecting in India to do so. Once the weather gets more and more heated, we're going to even have that one. So this ought to be fun. People keep claiming about earthquake weather. I'm like, no, outside forces don't exactly influence geology all that much regarding earthquakes, unless, of course, we're talking about slides. Freeways are impacted, so are rail lines. At this point, we got cliffs that we have property sitting on top of, and then you got a road down below, and then when you got enough soil creep going in there, there's enough moisture loosening up the soil in there for a long period of time, just eating away at the dissolved minerals. San Juan Capistrano and certain portions of Highway 1 of Pacific Highway up in the middle to northern regions of California along the coastline. Some areas had to be cordoned off and people had to do detours because of it. Capistrano is still having the issues concerning about the rail lines because of the soil creep in the area. There's enough liquid dissolving some minerals in there. I mean, really dissolving them. We're going to have soil creep. Or worse, we're going to have a landslide. Limestone, you stick that into water and you're going to see the dissolving like crazy. And it's creepy when you see that in action, I'll tell you. It's even deadlier when you're in part of the damn thing in the first place. Sometimes I wonder, why the hell do we have to keep putting houses on top of the hillsides? Just so we can see the view every single morning when we wake up and with our morning coffee or seeing the sunset, and we just enjoy the damn thing. Meanwhile, we get this rumbling underneath the property, and then, George, what the hell happened to my damn swimming pool? I think the neighbors down below have already got it. Well, now what do we do? Move. I'm not moving here. This is $1 million house. Where's that rumbling coming from? They're not saying it's an earthquake. Ah! Oh, yeah. Science at work. Gravity takes over and the slide goes on. Well, we deal out here. It gets hotter and hotter, as I said before, and we get the firebugs coming out. Of course, probably arsonists will be blaming the fires up in Canada for that one. We don't have that. We already have our own stupidity out here. They'll burn up the forest just for the fun of it. Or because they're not paying attention to it. Or something else happens. You're driving through some of the areas and spark somehow comes from a car, from metal hitting rock. Or campfires not taken care of properly. Human action. The thing that they worry about half the time is when we get into a heavy duty turbulent atmospheric events. Basically, we got thunderstorms being built up, unstable air out there. You got air masses clashing with each other. You got the cold versus hot weather clashing with each other. Stirs up a lot of instability. You get your clouds being formed. You got moisture being sucked out from everywhere else, building and building until you got this huge, humongous clouds out there. And in such clouds, you also have the instability in there where the ionization is going completely bunko. Basically, it gets to a certain point where you get the atmospheric discharge. And they worry about that one. Oh, yeah, they worry about that one. In the desert regions, it's one thing when you're striking the ground left and right with the lightning, and maybe nothing's going to happen because you're striking the ground and you're making a connection with the earth. But when you're in a forest region, there's a lot that I have to worry about because that's potential for fire, especially if it's dry enough and they already had a pretty intense soaking and then an intense period of drying out, they become ready for fire. That's what I worry about mostly. It's not the human stupidity. I mean, that's accepted right there. But what gets to me is nature's own way of creating a havoc forest because we want to save the forest for people and generations to come. The problem is nature has a different way of it. There has been controversy concerning about how the National Weather Service, not the National Service, but the Department of Interior's forest management programs are being mismanaged or misinterpreted. It needs to be reinterpreted and guidelines changed. How much are you willing to lose in order for new growth to happen? I mean, new growth is underneath the soil. And the old growth gets cleared out, new growth wants to come in. It's bad enough when we actually had logging going on, but when you actually are trying to preserve the national forest, then you got to figure out, okay, how much are you willing to save for the future generations? Are they going to last there for years and years and years until they're dried out and and husky and lifeless and losing integrity? And then you got to deal with the youth trying to crawl up right next to them or near them. And it gets rough to deal with. When we get fires going, even the youth get burned up a little bit, but then they have to struggle for survival. I'd seen it happen already in our hillsides out here in Southern California. Going through the pass that the 14 freeway goes through between Antelope Valley and Santa Clarita, and even through that to the San Fernando Valley. They have the Angeles National Forest covering the entire area. It's a lot of forest area. It's a lot of mountainous regions, I'll tell you. And there's also communities built in these areas. Fire department worries more about the human habitation instead of the damn forest. But the forest, when it burns out, we ain't got any watershed. You know what happens? Flood zone, here we go. There goes the houses, there goes the community. Everything else goes hell in a handbasket. And then you got the animals shifted from the burn areas into the human habitation areas. See how we're dealing with these situations here? It's bad enough in our hillsides that we have mountain lions and forest creatures living in our hillsides. And human beings are living in the hillsides because they think it's pretty. They can see the scenery and they can enjoy the scenery. Well, here comes nature, right through your backyard, right through your house. Wherever man's trying to cohabitate at this point over here, nature has a way of irritating the living crap out of us, or we try to coexist with them one way or another. My God, that's a scary thought. Coexist with the bugs I got right now? Then where would the Orkin guys be? So I have to deal with these guys on a constant basis. Aren't we having fun today or what? Not really. I'm just having one of those kind of mornings. I'm staying the hell away from what they're talking about on news concerning politics and local stuff happening because they're driving me nuts. I'm staying away from YouTube at this point from all those other zeros and ones that are targeting me left and right. And I have to freak out about that one there. So I'm having a conniption fit with that one. I'd seen some of the actions and what the politicians are trying to do, playing head games with us all the damn time. That's what they do. Want to get in office? Let's play head games. I can't deal with it. Ooh, something's been released. So let's get the news on this one. I think it's a slow news day. I was watching MSNBC. I did. CNN's been overkilling the submersibles tragedy. There had been a lot of controversy over that thing. Anyway, I'll bring up another video on this one here right after this.